Hello, welcome back to my haunted library. It's Regina, or maybe Czarina. It is so nasty out weather-wise where I live that I had to bring out all the furs because it is freezing in my haunted library. But anyway, I wanted to, before I do my video today, or start what I was going to talk about, which is the Ladies of Horror Fiction Readathon wrap-up, is I wanted to extend a thank you to Mr. Cameron Chaney, who gave me a shout out a couple days ago about with some other horror booktubers, and because of that, I got a lot of subscribers overnight. So it's funny how that stuff works. So I wanted to again say thanks, and also to any new subscribers, welcome. Thank you for checking out my channel, and I hope you find it entertaining and fun. So here we go. So this was a month, February, that is, was a month for reading Ladies of Horror Fiction, which I did participate in this. The lovely Alex over at Hey Little Thrifter, I will link her below, along with the Ladies of Horror Fiction.com, I believe it is. I'll put that link below too. They hosted a readathon. It was on Twitter and on Instagram, which I do now have a Twitter account. I just opened one, and I've been on Instagram for a little while. I don't know why I'm pointing over here. I know it's somewhere on this page. Anyway, it was fun to see what other people were reading and to check in with different posts about what was going on. So I did participate. I didn't read strictly horror, and I don't know if I followed the rules exactly to the letter. In fact, I know I didn't, but I did participate somewhat. I was also reading Lord of the Rings during that month, so the whole thing. So I was a little preoccupied with that, but I would take breaks between reading Tolkien and I would read some horror, so it kind of worked out that way. So I'm going to do a little wrap up about what I read, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so the Readathon challenge was to read horror books by women. Now, there are a lot of women who love horror. I'm one of them. I also am a horror writer, just plugging my book a little bit right there. And I have a new release coming out soon. So I'm really into this. Of course, Mary Shelley was female, and she wrote probably the first horror book, Frankenstein, which is probably my favorite novel of all time. So yeah, this is something right up my alley. So let's get to the challenge and see what I read. I got a kind of a mixed bag here. So read an indie author. So what I did was I just happened to have this new anthology called A Map to Desire, an anthology, and this just came out. And I happen to have a story in it. So you can check that out. I've been reading through it. I got about this far. Mine's all the way at the end. So you can skip ahead or when you get there. But this was a really nice anthology put together by Black Quill Editing. Some lovely people that asked me to be part of this. And all proceeds for this goes to First Book, which is an organization that brings books to needy kids. So when you're reading this very twisted collection of erotic horror, you can have your guilt assuaged by the fact that it's going to a good cause, although it's not for children, so if that makes sense. Okay. Anyway, I read a book. I'm out of it today. I read a story. So the one that I read, and like I said, I'm still working my way through, and it is really good. And if you are a writer and you get an opportunity, like I have a few times, to participate in putting your story in a anthology and getting to know other writers and their work, I definitely recommend that you do it. I'm hoping to do more. And even if you go on like the website like Horror Tree or Dark Markets and look for people who are asking for submissions, and usually you don't get paid, but it's okay. You get to participate, you get to work on your skills, you get to meet a deadline, and you get to meet other writers. So I would highly recommend it. Anyway, this one is called In Love and Gore by Devon Tarantino, and she is a young writer. And this was really good. It was kind of like it was a little bit like a zombie apocalyptic horror with a little bit of romance thrown in there and a little sex romping going on while the zombies are are trying to do their thing. So yeah, this was really great. So check this out. Map to Desire, an anthology. All of the proceeds go to a good cause, and it's also on Kindle on Amazon. So the next challenge was to read an author of color. And I read a book, and I have it somewhere, the actual book, but I can't seem to find it in all my mess. So I will put a picture of it here. It's called Necromancy by Darlene Black. Darlene Black is an African-American writer from Philadelphia, which is near where I live. And I really enjoyed in this book about all the different locations of Philadelphia, which that's always fun when you're reading a book and you're like, oh, I know exactly where she's talking about. So this was a book about the occult, and I think it was independently published. It looked like it was, but it's available on Kindle too. And I enjoyed it. It was kind of like a little challenging. Just the writing style I found was very formal. So not that that was really off-putting. It just was kind of an interesting way of telling the story. But what I did really love about it, well, first of all, it's about a young woman who is being kind of taken over by this, she's sort of like a voodoo witch doctor type of lady. And Zamoria, I think her name was. She was a really great character. And it's very much a story of the occult. And from my own research into occult topics, which I do really, I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I read a lot about it and kind of study it informally. I could tell this author really knows her stuff. So it's that kind of the intersection with like African American, Southern Baptist religion, Catholicism, and voodoo, and just sort of a homebred occult. You never know what fish you're going to catch when you throw the net out a little farther than you're used to. So sometimes you can come up with some really cool stuff. So I did enjoy that. I gave it 3 stars, I think. I mean, it wasn't like, I don't know if I would highly recommend it, because I don't think that your average horror reader might like it. But because of my interest in the occult, I got a lot out of it. And so that's that. So by an LGBTQ plus author. Okay, so I hope this fits. I chose Lost Souls by Poppy Z. Brite, and I say I hope that fits because I know that she is now a trans man who goes by the name Billy Martin. So I don't want to be disrespectful, but I think this works. This is a book from the early 90s. It was a reread, a very famous vampire novel that came out. It really, in so many ways, defines that 90s goth style. It takes place mostly in New Orleans. It's, it really is just about a bunch of lost souls. It's like a group of vampires and this young man named Nothing, which kind of sums up his personality in a way, discovers that one of the vampires is his father. And there's a lot of it's like a road trip, and there's a lot of decadence. There's a lot of sex and a lot of drug taking. And this is a reread for me. I think I first knew about Poppy Z. Brite from reading a book I'm currently rereading, which is Gothic by Richard Davenport Hines. Still reading it. And he does a whole chapter at the end about Poppy Z. Brite, how, I'll use he. He is the future of Gothic literature. And I know from looking a little bit about Poppy Z. Brite back then and then now that he has kind of gotten away from the horror and has written about other things. But what is amazing about this book, Lost Souls, and again, I don't know if it's for everyone. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I liked it a lot. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's not for everyone in that it's not like it has much of a plot, and it does have that kind of thing that I've complained about before, kind of like a nihilistic tone where you're not really rooting for anyone because everyone is kind of despicable. Like for example, the character Nothing. I mean, he really is just nothing, and he proclaims to have like love for this vampire father, but it's a little hard to wrap your mind around. It's extremely decadent. but I mean, I don't mind that, but some people might not be into that. I mean, it's lots and lots of decadence and drug taking and gay sex, which, doesn't offend me at all, but when you add in incest and this other kind of stuff, you're really walking that line. But for anyone who likes that kind of extreme horror, I think probably already has read this book, and I enjoyed it. And also, this author is an incredible stylist. I mean, thinking about, he wrote this when he was like 20. I mean, an incredible writer. Just the technique of his writing is so impressive. So next, a book published before you were born. Okay, I had to go way back for this one. But I have this wonderful anthology of horror short stories that I found in my local thrift, secondhand bookstore called The Dark Descent. I have been slowly, it's thick, but I've been slowly reading stories from this, picking up every once in a while. And I read I read two that I'm going to talk about. I actually read three because I reread The Call of Cthulhu, which is in here. There's a couple Lovecraft one, such an amazing story. But the one that I read for the challenge is called The New Mother by Lucy Lane Clifford, 1882. That's how far back I had to go. Just kidding. But anyway, this short story really creeped me out. It's about these two little kids living in a little cabin with their mother, out in the country, and they're getting a little bratty, and she's like, oh, well, if you do this. Oh, they meet this little girl in town, and it's been weeks since I read it, but she shows them something, and something like the new mother's going to come. So their own mother leaves, and then the new mother comes, and it's horrifying. It kind of reminds me of The Monkey's Paw. It's so creepy. This kind of stuff really gets under my skin. And this book, from what I've read so far, is filled with that kind of stuff. Because I also read a short story in here by Shirley Jackson, who, of course, wrote The Lottery, which is, among other things, which is an amazing short story. And this one has an equal pinch as that one does. It's called The Summer People, which I counted as my something short. And it's kind of like it's like On Golden Pond as a horror story about this elderly couple who decide that they're not going home for the summer. They're going to stay at this cabin that they stay in on the lake. But the people around them don't want them to stay. So very subtly, the electricity goes off. The phone doesn't work. And now they are trapped. And there's a looming horror. I won't give it away. So I think that's everything on the challenge. So I think I hit all the marks. What am I talking about? I also read Ghost Light by Claire McNally, a little paperback from hell that I picked up at my local secondhand bookstore. This was pretty good. It wasn't anything to write home about, but it was a short, kind of fun read. A little dated, but it was fun. I work at a theater, so I appreciated all the theatrical references, which she really got right. And the last one, I just couldn't resist. It was Staring at Me in the Drugstore, which is a line from a horror movie / book. See if anyone catches it. Put it in the comment below if you do. And this is Ruth, Ware in a Dark, Dark Wood. I don't know if it would really count as horror. I think it does. This is like a bestseller, and I saw it in the drugstore. Usually, you don't find books like this in my drugstore. It's all like romance, so I nabbed it, and I read it in like a day. It was really, really good. It was a really great page turner. It's kind of one of those books where it doesn't stay with you per se, but the ride is fun. So there's definitely a place for those books always in my library. So that's all I have for today. Let me know in the comments below if you've done the Readathon and what you've read, or link your video, or tell me where to find it, because I would love to check it out. So thanks again for Hey Little Thrifter for hosting this, and Women of Horror Fiction, or Ladies of Horror Fiction. I'll link the pertinent links below. So that's all I have for today. Thanks again for stopping by my haunted library. Stay warm. Bye.